Welcome! Have you ever been in the position of where you want to invade a planet in Aurora 4X C#? Specifically, you're in a position where you've gained control of the space above that planet, and now you're wondering, how the hell do I take control of this world with a bunch of angry Xenos on it? Well, in today's video, we're going to be going over that exact process step by step, from designing those forces, building them, putting them on a ship, landing them on the planet, and then continuing our invasion. So, and dealing with the aftermath as well, most importantly. So, what are we going to need? Well, as you may have guessed, this is going to be about ground forces in particular. And since ground forces are something which, generally speaking, a lot of people have difficulties with, we're going to go into detail in terms of that design. So the first thing that we're going to need is a force capable of killing the enemy or dealing with the enemy on the ground. Okay, we're already assuming that we've dealt with any kind of surface assault weapons, any kind of naval weapons, and we are not going to be designing any ships. Okay, just ground forces and then landing them with some pre-made transports that I made. There will, if you guys enjoy this video enough, I'll make a ship video similarly on how to crack a planet's defenses and the kind of ships that you will need for that. But in today's video, we're going over, as I said, the kind of ground forces that you want. So, let's go over to our unit class design. The first thing that we're going to be thinking about is designing the elements that will go into our formations and the formations that we will be landing. There are a few general rules before we design those units. The first is that when invading a planet, it's going to be hard. It just is. They are going to have fortification modifiers. Depending on the type of planet, they're going to have even better fortification modifiers. And you'll see on screen right now, this graph or table tells you the fortification bonuses they get depending on the type of world. In this save, we're going to be invading Sol 3, Sol 3, aka Earth. Earth is a temperate forest world, and so we'll have an accordant fortification modifier on top of everything else that it has going for it. You also have to consider the planet that you're invading. There are different temperatures, different gravities, and if it's outside your gravity range, if it's outside your temperature range, you are going to take penalties for invading that world. And when I talk about it being very difficult, I'm also talking about the amount of forces needed to be able to defeat the enemy. Okay? So, fortification level, which we talked about with terms of the terrain, also hides the amount of forces on that world. If you see 10,000 tons of ground forces on Earth, for example, and they have a fortification modifier, let's say a 5, they may have 50,000 tons of ground forces. And then we have to factor in that when we invade their planet, we won't have any fortification, we won't have any emplacements, we won't be dug in, and we're going to be a lot easier to be hit by our opponents. And we'll get into kind of how that works in a bit. So because of that, we are going to need many more forces to be able to get through that point. So let's assume the enemy has 200,000 tons of ground forces, okay, after fortification is taken into effect. That means that we're probably going to need, now IRL is 3-1, but in Aurora, depending on the fortification level, if you're going on a jungle mountain world, you're going to probably need 5-1 in terms of tonnage, assuming equal tech. If you're going on a barren world, more like 3-1, maybe 2-1 would be okay. Okay? In this situation, we're going to assume a ratio of 3-1. So we're going to need 600,000 metric tons or displacement tons of ground forces to be able to properly invade. You're also going to expect heavy casualties, and so in a little bit, we're going to get into as well how we're going to be repairing those casualties after the seizure of the world. Okay? So, the first thing that we're going to need to design, and the thing that I kind of like to break into, is break your formations into different purposes. You've got your health point formations, okay? Their purpose is to soak damage and fire a ton of shots, and be in the way. And this is what infantry is for. Then we have your heavy hitters, and these are your tanks, these are your vehicles, these are your genetically modified infantry. They are particularly used for breaking through the line, and they use that infantry, the infantry you made, to soak up. And then we have the logistics and the rear echelon support part of it. And that part is used for killing the enemy logistics and killing the enemy HQs and backline bombardment. Okay, you have to consider the fact that a combat is only going to go as long as either your forces stay alive or supply lasts, and then if your supply doesn't last, your forces are all going to die. Because of this, you've got to be very cognizant of that fact, right? So let's design infantry to land on the world, okay? So as you can see in front of you, we have the unit class design screen. We're going to design ourselves an element. It's going to be infantry. Now, your tech level may differ, right? So you may have different tech, you may have different capabilities, your racial weaponry and arm strength may be different. These are things that are going to be variables that you're going to have to kind of approximate from this video. But suffice it to say, in terms of your infantry, you want the most heavily powered armored infantry possible. I'm going to explain to you why infantry is useful in the role that I've prescribed, okay? So, in terms of tonnage per hit point, we get 3 size with light personal weapons. But let's say we just have normal personal weapons. We have size 5 for 4 hit points. When you compare that to, let's say, a light vehicle, that is size 12 for 12 hit points, right? And you maybe like, or size 24 in terms of tonnage. Because you also have the armor, which is increasing in size. So you are more efficient in per ton, and you're much more efficient in per hit point. For example, this costs us 0.96 build points, and we get 12 hit points in return. While for infantry, we get 4 hit points, and we get 0.06 per infantryman with that weapon, or 0.1 here. So we can have 40 hit points while for the cost of 1 light vehicle, or 36 more approximately. Now again, and then now you may be asking, okay, well, how do the hit points matter? How do the armor matter? The armor matters because of the equation. The first thing I want to say is that there's no such thing as a hit point pool. There's no such thing as armor pool. Think of these as pass or fail checks, okay? And how we calculate that is based on the final, the 7th and 8th part of the subsequent roll that the game does. So if a hit is scored against a target, the armor-piercing AP value of the weapon is then thrown against the armor of that target, okay? So for example, we have a light personal weapon here, which has a penetration of 2 and a damage of 2. We have an armor of 4. If we fired this weapon on ourselves and secured a hit, we would do the following equation, okay? We would do, in brackets, 2 divided by 4 squared, okay? Which would be 25%. So it would be this. This would be the math to accomplish that. So we would get a 25% chance to pass through that. So that is then a 1 in 4 shots. So let's say we fire 4 shots, 1 of them penetrates. Then we have 4 hit points. We do 2 damage. We're then going to need to roll another 25% chance. We have to roll 25% again to then kill the target, okay? So this is where your selection of weapons comes into great importance. And it especially matters in the context when we're discussing the, and I'm going to put this on screen, how hit chance is done. Suffice it to say, your hit chance is going to be in the low 1%, okay? And that's why you need volume of fire, and it's going to be especially worse against fortified enemies. So if you don't make these checks, let's say you fire 100 shots, 10 of them hit, and then, would be very good. 10 of them hit, and then only 25 of them penetrate, and then only 5 or 6 of them actually die from that, okay? We want to make that end part as good as possible in regards to what they're firing against. And we want to make it as hard for our enemy to be able to kill our units, okay? So, I suggest for your infantry, you put as much armor on them as you possibly can if you can afford the cost. You double your cost for the armor. However, you double your armor. As you can see here, 1.52. So what this means is it will give you 50% extra armor if you have like of your racial armor, which is based off your ships, ship defensive armor, and then also your racial weapons is like based off ship weapons. So, and then 2 with heavy powered infantry armor, we get 2. So we have 8 total armor. And then when we compare penetration values, if we do 2 divided by 8, I think that would be 6.25%, if my mathematics is correct on that. It probably is not. Yes, I am correct. Just check. The 6.25% chance to penetrate, but then 25% to kill. So that's why armor is very important there. If we then adjust to improve personal weapons, yeah, light and powered infantry armor, heavy powered infantry armor, okay? We get 6 penetration, so we're paying much higher costs, okay? And we are increasing tonnage, but we get the higher penetration stats. So we get 6 divided by 8 squared, which is 0.5625, or effectively 56% chance to penetrate our own armor, okay? So this consideration is very, very important whenever we're thinking about designing ground forces, okay? Because you need to think about what they're going to be firing against, what they're going to be doing against, okay? So we're going to make a trooper. We're just going to call it Marine Trooper. Okay? And we're going to put IPW in there as well. I'm going to go improve personal weapons. I think the extra penetration value is worth it. But you have to always keep in mind you are paying additional GSP, especially when you go from like personal to personal. And you are paying you are paying additional tonnage, which means there's more space that's going to be going on your transports. Okay. Now, in terms of capabilities over here, if you are able, if you know you're going to be fighting on worlds that are outside of these parameters, do it. Okay. The cost is going to multiply significantly. However, you negate the negatives, and you effectively get twice as much hit rate. It's very, very good for you to have these capabilities if you can. You can have up to 2 of them. But keep in mind that cost is going to be quite significant. Okay, so this is 2 times the cost. So extreme pressure combat, all that means is human's temperature is like, max temperature is like, I think 38 or something comfortable. If it's above that, then, and you had humans, then you would get a bonus. Well, not a bonus, but you would get an extra hit rate, and your opponent likely probably would not. So keep that in mind. So we are going to design that. I'm going to make sure that's instanted. I'm instancing formations and doing all that for the purposes of saving time. Of course, you will have to build these things, and so cost is always going to be a consideration. The next thing that we need to consider is, because right now we're building for our infantry formation. We're building our infantry elements to put on our infantry formation, and this is how we go on. So we're going to be thinking now about what else do we want in here. As I talked about earlier, that penetration is really, really important, okay? And so you may have noticed vehicles can have a lot of armor. We can have 16 armor on here, which is a lot more than what an infantry boy can have. So we're going to need something to be able to deal with that, and so we're going to go over to the light anti-vehicle. Now, you may be asking, why not use something like a heavier anti-vehicle that you can have on like a light vehicle or on something like this? Well, that's perfectly fine. There are drawbacks. One of them is going to be cost. Light anti-vehicle can get the most amount of shots for your buck, and more shots is more good in a low hit rate environment, okay? And then the second thing is going to be breakthroughs and also hit modification. So having static elements in your infantry elements is going to mean that you'll be worse on the attack in terms of achieving breakthroughs, and also means that they're going to have a higher chance to hit. Because we can see the hit modification here. Infantry are harder to hit than static emplacements, essentially. 40% harder to hit. So we need something to be able to pierce through basic armor, and so we're going to create a Marine Trooper LAT. I'm going to put that light anti-vehicle, and we're going to instant that, okay? I'm going to turn extreme temperature combat off. Actually, I also want to do pound infantry armor. Yeah, there we go. Then you may be asking, okay, why don't we put some like machine guns, like heavy crew-served anti-personnel, which is what they represent, or light anti-aircraft or light bombardment. So we're not going to put light bombardment on because this is going to be a frontline formation, and the benefit of bombardment is it can shoot from rear echelon, so it's less likely to be hit. If you don't know what that is, go and watch my previous Ground Force tutorial videos. We're not going to do light anti-aircraft. In all your games versus MPRs and spoilers, they will not have ground support fighters, so this is effectively useless. There's also some really broken stuff with it, so we're not going to use it. The next thing is going to be machine guns. These can be used, however, when we talk about our purpose being a health point and armor point sink for our opponents, this would get us more shots theoretically, but less HP and less armor overall for the formation for considerably more cost than what we could have. And so that's why we're not going to do that. Now we need to talk about sizes, okay? What I recommend is finding out what size of your transports are, what size you want to design your transports at, and then matching accordingly, and then also basing it off the yearly cost. So I recommend that you should be able to build a battalion or your lowest hierarchical formation, so the formation on the front line, within 1 year, okay? And this usually for me works out about 10,000 tons in terms of size for a unit. So I'm going to go to headquarters, I'm going to make a 10,000 ton infantry unit. Again, you can make this out of like static or something, but I use infantry because it's the cheapest one to develop and also sizing and costs. And we're going to call this Marine Battalion Headquarters, okay? And we want to avoid combat because this guy doesn't have a weapon. That's the rule. Doesn't have a weapon, don't avoid combat, including STOs. Instant that. Okay, so we have our infantry battalion sinks, okay? Now we need to be thinking about how else are we going to be offensively good. Okay, how are we going to do well on the offense? Like I previously talked, vehicles are very, very good at that offensive part. So this is the second segment. Vehicles have much higher hit points and armor, which means that they can sustain more damage from a larger opposing force of infantry. But they're easy to hit usually, except for light vehicles, which have a hit modification of 0.4. They're the hardest to hit modification thing in the game, okay? But you have less max fortification, so on the defense, vehicles are worse. In this regard, vehicles really want to be getting as many shots as they can while not over-penetrating. If you over-penetrate, you get no benefit. If you match their armor value, you get the maximum benefit. If you under, you are obviously rolling a hit chance. If you pass it, like you're 16 to 16, you'll 100% get through no matter what. Okay? So we need something that will be able to break through the lines and soak a lot of damage. So let's assume that our infantry has that light weapon, okay, and has a penetration of 10. So based on that, we know we need something that can have higher armor than that, so that we can deal with opposing infantry effectively. And we also need to be able to probably penetrate enemy vehicles or static emplacements. So let's assume like a heavy anti-vehicle static emplacement has a penetration of 30, a damage of 30, and has a armor value of and hit points of 4 and 12. Okay, so penetration 30. A heavy vehicle has, let's say, 24 armor and 24 hit points. So we need to be able to kind of break through both. This is going to be the thing that will break the line, so to speak. Vehicles also have an increased chance for breakthrough because they have more tonnage per element, and they can do a lot more firepower. There's benefits. So we're going to create a heavy vehicle. Now, we can't exactly beat the heavy anti-tank, okay? Can't beat the heavy anti-tank in terms of armor. We just don't have the armor capability. However, we are still going to be wanting that armor because we want to be able to beat the lat and the other stuff, make it almost impossible to penetrate. If you knew you were only going up against heavy anti-tank, you would probably want to instead go for no armor is best armor, and go for a light vehicle and go for less hit modification. We could, of course, go up to this and build a super heavy vehicle, but the costs get extravagant and the amount of shots you're actually able to dish out is relatively little. And so the max that I'm going to go for is a heavy tank, okay? So we're going to go for... we're going to go for... let's assume that we only want to defeat infantry armor. We're going to go for a medium armored vehicle. We're going to go for heavy crude anti-personnel weapons because we want to be able to, assumingly, the enemy infantry will have equivalent armor. Okay? Always prepare for the worst is what I'm saying, essentially. We're going to go for heavy crude anti-personnel. That gives us 8 penetration instead of 6 or 5. And then we're going to go for a medium or heavy anti-vehicle weapon because we assume that will be able to penetrate pretty much everything and be able to kill pretty much everything that it hits. I'm going to call this a MBT, okay? And this is going to be a primary offensive arm in this guard. Now, there are different thought strategies, but if your strategy for your armor is to be able to survive any hits it takes and dish out against heavier armor, then this is kind of an idea of what you want to go for. But if your idea is cost efficiency per tonnage and maximizing capability, then there's another way to do that. And the way that I would do that, so we're gonna do this for this tutorial, would be a light vehicle with a medium autocannon and light armor. You get a very cost-effective vehicle in terms it's very cheap for a vehicle. You get good penetration that can kill through infantry but not too much, and also can hurt armor. And you get a relatively small platform, but notably that autocannon fires 3 shots instead of 1 shot. And you have that hit modification reduction. So lots of these vehicles in massive formations could potentially be really, really good. Okay, so we're going with the MBT. We're also going to create a headquarters MBT because we don't want to affect our breakthrough chance. Okay, so heavy vehicle, medium. Oh yeah, I messed up there. There's no point of a heavy vehicle if I'm not going to put heavy vehicle armor on it, so we might as well go medium vehicle armor. Did I design? Yeah, I did that. We're gonna get rid of that. So we're gonna go for heavy vehicle armor. We're gonna go for a midway point, medium vehicle armor, heavy anti-tank weapon, and then we're gonna go for heavy crude anti-serv personnel. Instant that. HQ. Okay, that's done. Now, we're going to be thinking about the concept of destroying enemy supply and being able to bombard that supply effectively. So we're going to create bombardment formations, and these are going to support our offensive formations in destroying their supply, and then also counter battery fire as needed. Okay, so what we've created so far, we've created an infantry formation, essentially, infantry elements. We've created vehicle elements, and then we've created, we're going to create bombardment elements, and then we'll create logistics elements, okay? So the infantry will soak the damage, the tanks will do the damage, and the bombardment will protect our vehicles accordingly, okay? And also shoot their supply, which is really useful, okay? So we are going to create a static emplacement, because we can, unlike infantry, we can fit this on, and it's generally cheaper than a vehicle which can also fit these things on. And we're going to create a bombardment, or a medium bombardment and a heavy bombardment. So I'm going to show this on screen. There's a graph here. This shows what can shoot into what. Heavy bombardment can shoot from rear echelon. Medium bombardment can only shoot from support. And medium bombardment can shoot into support. So we want to go for heavy bombardment, because that will allow us to counter battery fire against other heavy bombardments. You can also go for super heavy bombardment, which is a bunch damage, or long range bombardment. Long range is just medium, but can shoot from rear echelon. In this case, actually, it might be the right call, but I do want a lot more damage, because assuming enemy formations are static, or assuming that they're logistics vehicles, they're going to have quite a bit of HP. So we're going to go for MB72. Or HB 72, and that's going to be the capability. Now, we're sitting in the rear echelon, so we're going to assume we don't need much armor, and so we're not going to put any armor on, and we're going to create that. The bombardment is bad in terms of the shots you get for the tonnage and the cost, but it solves that by being able to shoot in areas where the enemy can't shoot into, and so over time, they're more valuable. So if you want probably the most effective way to kill infantry with bombardment, it's a bunch of light bombardment that you sit behind the infantry in support, and you keep it in that support area. You don't put it in the main front line formation, and you just keep bombarding from there. But we don't have that just yet. So then we're going to create some logistics vehicles. I like to use logistics vehicles because they reduce the micro. Technically speaking, infantry is better per tonnage and cost, but this will change in 2.2. So we're going to create a logistics vehicle. I'm going to call it LG62. I'm going to avoid combat that though as well. Obsolete. Then we're going to need HQs to be able to fit all this in. I'm going to create a infantry HQ because they're the cheapest. That's the reason why. 50,000 tons because I want to have 4 battalions, right? 4 battalions in my formation. And then I want to have a HQ formation, which also has the supplies in to supply that formation, okay? And we're going for 30 days to be able to supply that formation. If you need more than that, I would recommend either you put more supply trucks in, reduce your cost, or the better thing would be have dedicated supply formations which you can cycle in trucks, cycle in supply, okay? So we're going to create a HQ regimental, okay? And this is going to be for regimental stuff. That's the thing above a battalion, but you can call it anything you want. So we're going to create that HQ. Then we're going to create a HQ which is going to be a 200,000 ton HQ. And that is going to be what will be our divisional HQ, okay? And we're going to assume, again, we're going to present a 200,000 ton enemy formation. We're going to need 600,000 tons of ground forces, so we'll need 3 divisions. Okay. So now let's sort out our formations. It's been a bit. It's 25 minutes in, and we've discussed a lot, okay? But all this information is really, really useful, and it's all going to help kind of get you through the design process step by step and understand how I'm thinking and how you should be thinking whenever you're doing stuff like this, okay? So we're going to put together now our infantry battalion. So I'm going to call it infantry battalion. I'm going to call it army, okay? We're going to probably, what I like to do is I like to have a ratio of 1 to 3 in terms of LATs, or light anti-vehicle, to personal to normal troopers. So I'm gonna put like 6,000, not 6,000. I'm gonna put like 600, like 1,200 of these guys, and then we're gonna put in like 120, like a tenth of like the actual units usually works out as well. 150. Again, you're trying to get this up to about 10,000. If you go over that, your HQ is gonna suffer from it, so you got to be a bit careful about that. So we're going to put that in, and then I'm going to put in 1205, and we get 10,000 ton formation on the dot. This is pretty expensive. Again, look at your costs. This will change in 2.2, but currently you need to build formations parallel. You can't build formations vertically. So you can't have 10 ground facilities build one formation. You have to have 10 facilities building one formation each, and so match your build capability. So let's say your build capability is 320 per facility. You'll probably want to look for 320 cost, so you can build these formations in a year, and that would be probably a decent production rate. It's why STOs take so long to build, because their cost is so high and they can only build from one facility, if you're wondering. Then we're going to create an infantry regiment, and I might just skip through this, guys, and cut this out, but of course we will see. So I'm going to just put the regimental HQ in there, and I'm also going to put in all the logistics that I'll be needing. Again, so to calculate how much logistics we will need, let's assume a formation of, let's assume a formation of, one regiment has 4 infantry battalions, and each of the infantry battalions have 2,526 GSP inherently built in. That GSP allows them to fight for 3 days, 3.3 days, or 80 hours, which is 10 rounds of combat. So, if we times that by 10, we get 33.3 days, but that means that we need 25,000 supply points per infantry battalion, okay? So, with 160, let's do 160, or 59, 157. 157, we have 78,000 GSP, which is just enough to be able to support 4 infantry battalions, or 3 infantry battalions for 30 days straight, okay? Because we need 75,000 GSP to resupply them for 30 days straight. But we're going to put 4 battalions in there, so we're going to probably get about 26 days around there, but we do have some built-in extra. Again, you want some kind of reserve or replenishment to potentially bring in, or some kind of supply formation, which we will get to at some point later. Then we're going to make a infantry division, and that's only going to have our divisional headquarters in. Okay. Then we're going to create a tank battalion, army. And that's just going to have our vehicles in. Again, this is a very simple way. You can get much more complex with ground forces overall. But this is the very simple way of what you will need to invade a planet. In terms of, like, what you can get away with. So we're going to make, like, 115 vehicles. Then the HQ. There we go. And then we're going to create a artillery battalion. I'm going to rename this to regiments. Okay. There we go. So we got all our formations. But I'm also going to create a new formation, and I'm going to call this War Stock. And this is going to do, it's going to contain a ton of all of our different formations, and we're going to dedicate a certain amount of our production to it. I recommend 25% of your production goes into this. And you can move elements into formations already in existence. You keep building up this War Stock so that you can then, like a bank, and then you take out a loan from it to replenish your forces on the ground after an assault. Okay? So we are going to put in like 5,000 infantry. We're going to put in like 500 LATs. We're going to put in, oh, those are the bad ones. I also want to make sure I didn't screw up that one. I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did. We're going to put in, yeah, 500 LATs. We're going to put in, how much is in the battalion of these? Tank battalion? 115. We're going to put in, say, 1,000 main battle tanks, okay? We're going to put in, like, 10 HQs. Again, this is going to be very, very costly, so you're not going to be able to have that much in here, but you want probably 25% of the production you do. So let's say 5 facilities, one of the facilities constantly building reserves, okay? We're going to have 500 of those. We're going to have, like, 2,000 logistics trucks. And again, this is just simulating a war stock of what you would have. In the background. We're going to have, like, I don't know, 20 battalion headquarters. We're going to have 20 of these, and 20 of those. And anything else that I'm missing? I don't think so. No. So we're going to have that war stock. So then you would train them up through the ground forces training tab, but I'm going to just instant build these accordingly. So we're going to go for 3 infantry divisions. We're going to need 4 regiments per division. So we are going to do, or 5 regiments per division, my bad. 1,000, 50,000, 50,000. So we're going to have 15 regiments. We're going to have 60 battalions. So we're going to have, how many of that is that? 4, 6. We'll have 24, 36 infantry battalions. We will then have 12 artillery battalions. 12 artillery battalions. 4. And then 12 tank battalions. Yep. And then I think I did war stock. I think I did. Yes, I did. Okay. So that's all of our formations. We're then going to put them together. This is going to take some time. I'm probably going to cut this out, but suffice it to say, you put them in like this, and I'll show you the final setup in a little bit. Okay, and we are back. So what we've got here is 3 infantry divisions of exactly like this. 4 battalions in each. We have an artillery battalion, a tank battalion, and then 3 infantry regiments, 1 artillery regiment, and then a tank regiment as well. So what we're then going to do is we're going to set their field position before we send them into combat. Frontline defense is the automatic one. We want all of our infantry on frontline attack because we're going to be invading. We get no fortification from this, but we get a bonus to breakthrough. You also just saw the set all formation of the same template at the same population. You want to be doing this. It's very, very good. Our regimental headquarters should be in the rear echelon because they have our logistics, and that is the same with our divisions. Tank battalion should also be on frontline attack. And our artillery battalions are going to be on rear echelon duty. And we're going to be having them sit there in rear echelon, and they should be working fine. What's going on with our artillery battalions? Did I not put them in correctly? Oh, I did not. That's my bad. So I'm going to be right back as I fix that. So those are all our formations, our artillery battalions. We are going to, again, put them into rear echelon. And I'm going to have them not do that. I want them to support. I guess they can't provide support right now anyway. So that is our artillery formations, and I'm also going to go to war stock. I'm going to put this into rear echelon, and I'm going to put this for use for replacements. So now we need to begin actually moving over all of these formations, and this is going to be the start of the invasion part. However, before I do that, I am going to put on automated assignments, and I'm just going to wait 5 days, and that should make sure that we have at least some commanders. I think the auto assignment is a little bit broken, but you're going to want commanders on here, so keep that in mind. I've gotten some troop transports. We've got a total of 8 of them. That's 400,000 tons of capacity. We are going to need some more, so I'm just going to get a few more of them in. So troop transports, 4 of them. And now we have 12 troop transports with 600,000 tons of capacity. So I think we are going to need a bit more because we have, what's 250, 250, 250. So we've actually gone a little bit higher here because we've gone for the extra tank formation. So we've gone for 750,000 tons, which means that we're going to need, again, another 4 transports. 600, we have 600,000 tons. So we're going to need 3 more transports. We'll go with 4 for now. Troop transports. That gives us a total of capacity of 800,000. So once you have troop transports, you're going to go over here. You're going to hit load ground unit. We're going to hit load all sub units. This will load everything within the hierarchy, and we're going to load all of our infantry divisions. Okay. This is also a good time to make sure that we have the enemy race as hostile. And we're going to then approach, once loaded, the enemy formations. Again, troop transport design I'm not going to show for now, but just obviously keep that all in mind. So we're going to make sure that we load up everything. So I'm going to do that. There we go. We have loaded all our troop transports up. So we now have 3 infantry divisions ready to go. So now the SDOs are cleared out, the naval forces are cleared out. We've got our ground forces in route. It's just going to be a sitting and waiting game here. So we're going to, you got to create a colony. To unload troops. We're going to unload all troops, and then that is going to be it. I recommend whenever you invade a planet to have a planet nearby or a staging point where you can station more ground troops to bring in reinforcements if you don't have enough ground forces. And you can also station in supply formations or just bring them anyway, and then additionally supply your reinforcements, okay? So we are going to let our ships head over. Now, they're pretty slow ships, but they are coming in. Furthermore, we're going to have an idea of what our enemy tonnage looks like. We see 83,000 tons. We can probably expect that to be quite a bit higher. I'm not going to show you what ground forces are on there, but suffice to say they've been designed. There's about 200,000 tons of them. And we are going to move in and prepare to unload. It's going to take us 9 days to do so, so make sure that you have this area covered before you do any actions like this. Or you have drop bays. Drop bays would allow instantaneous deployment, but they're much more expensive. Okay, we've unloaded all our forces, which now means that we have 3 divisions on the planet. Now, they all should work. Artillery battalions might not. I have to be a bit careful about those. The formations are good to go. And now we do 8-hour increments, and we're going to see what happens. So we're going to keep this open. And I'm going to hit 8-hour increments. Okay. And there we go. First combat. I also need to make sure really quick that I put these guys on hostile. Yes. The first round of combat, as we can see here. We did the following damage. We didn't take any damage because of the previous. So we got a first camp surprise attack, and you wouldn't get this normally. They would fire back. We see that the 3rd Tank Battalion has actually achieved a breakthrough. So this is a percentage chance. This allows them to attack again. And that is why we built those tank battalions, ladies and gentlemen. We also have information that they have a total of 40,000 units, but there's a margin of error of 100% with that. And we can then have a breakdown of kind of how our formations are doing. We see that they have heavy AT emplacements, defensive bunkers, engineer trucks, and much, much more. We see our hit rates. You know, we're firing, 280 shots and hitting 2 of them. Okay. In terms of total summary for our hit rates, we are hitting. We're firing 28 1,000 shots from our infantry, and we are hitting 300. We fired at the gas troopers 28,000 or 28,000 shots, and we only hit 345 of them. But when we did hit, we went straight through their armor and killed them, which shows that our infantry weapons are doing exactly as we wanted them to do. However, when we shot at the AT emplacements, we only did 116 penetrations, and we only destroyed 36, which indicates that they have heavier armor or heavier health points than previous, but we are able to penetrate through their armor. And it looks like we're penetrating through most of their armor. Some of this we're not, though. And we want to make sure that all of our formations are firing. They should be. I think our artillery is not firing. We've also got some more information, of course. So we're going to go into here. I think the artillery is not firing. So I'm going to make sure. I think what we need to do, we need to take the regiment out of here, and then we can provide support. No? Support's being very weird today. We can put them in frontline attack mode, but they should work like this. Let me just read this. Always looking to information hierarchy. Independent artillery formation, for example. Yeah, these are independent artillery formations. I think what we need to do is we need to put them inside. So I'm going to put these artillery battalions in. Yeah, there we go. We need to put them inside the actual formation itself. So these will support those formations accordingly. So that was it looks like a bit of an issue with an oversight in the situation here. I think what might fix it is we just have it on the planet on their own. But yeah, you don't use IT too often here, but we are just going to move them into this formation. It is going to cause some issues, but we'll have at least should be able to fire, of course. Okay. So we killed approximately 345 troopers, 86 enemy tanks, 36 heavy AT emplacements, and 35 defensive bunkers. Of course, some things, of course, go wrong like that. So we're going to keep doing increments. So we're going to do an 8-hour increment. And now we are achieving significant breakthroughs, in fact. So, infantry battalions are achieving breakthroughs across the line. And we are making considerable progress. We lost, however, 200 Marines in that, and 101 Marine lats with 23 MBTs. We killed 536 garrison troopers and 122 army tanks. The reason for our success appears to be our heavier penetration and also our armor, meaning that we are taking relatively few losses. For example, these MBTs suffered 115 hits, but then only took 31 penetrations, and only 22 of them actually destroyed tanks. 22 of those shots destroyed tanks. The same with our troopers. We are not losing, we get hit, by 100 hits happen, but we only 20 are penetrated, only 19 actually are lost. So we do manage to save. But with the breakthroughs happening now, we're going to be breaking through and doing quite a bit of damage here. The next round of combat, we take some more losses. However, we are dishing out a disproportionate amount of casualties, and we are being able to break through the line here because of our significant number superiority. We have 3 times the amount of forces they have, and also what looks to be our the cost we invested into those infantry, into those tanks, was worth it against this particular enemy formation. We're breaking through again. You can see the ground force signature tonnage going down. We are killing about 6,000 tons, probably 15,000 tons every single increment along here. And we are achieving mass breakthroughs at this point. And once you achieve mass breakthroughs, you'll know you're winning. And we're just going to absolutely start just slaughtering. And there we go. We've conquered the population. After approximately, I would say, a week of combat, by having 600,000 tons, having proper armored forces, having proper strike forces, having a good strategy of the forces that we need. The artillery kind of screwed up a little bit there, but I'll put an addendum in the comments about fixing that. And now we need to go and replenish our forces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them off of Seoul, and this is going to be the part where we're going to talk about this. I'm going to take them off of Seoul, and it creates another colony, by the way, just keep that in mind. And we're going to go and repair accordingly. Okay? So second infantry division, and then also we need the third infantry division as well. We're going to take that back to our home world. So that's going to take some time, obviously. Okay, there we go. I think we've unloaded them all. We have. And so now what we're going to do, okay, so we're going to be using this stock. We got used for this. This is the replacement template, and we should begin to replenish losses that we suffered. So, for example, we suffered losses in these MBTs. We should have tank battalion 115. All you have... Oh, yes, I need to put these in unit series. So all you have to do is have this set to use for replacements with all your stuff in it. And then your replacement template set to your original template. And then also unit series added. So we are going to put in unit series for all of these. Okay. And by doing so, as long as they are in unit series, you don't need to use the unit series, but as long as you have them in the unit series, they will replenish. Okay. If you do not have them in the unit series, they will not replenish. So keep that in mind. If you are having issues or difficulties with that, that is likely why. So we are going to do a 5-day increment, okay? And we're going to see these tank battalions get fully reamed up. And you can see we went down 130,000 tons. And we replaced all of these forces in these divisions. And we're replacing even more of them. So we're going to do another 5-day increment right there. And we're going to probably see that all these formations are going to get filled up here. And if we can't fill them up, likely because we don't have enough stuff. I think we have the wrong lat in this, for example, and that's why we are not filling stuff up 100% to where it should be. In fact, we might even have the wrong IPW, which could be bad. But you can see with the tanks that they all filled up. We are going to just 5 days. It takes a bit of time, of course. And then we can have a look at war stock, and that's 114,000 tons. Because we've dished out all those additional MBTs and those formations, and that's how you do it. You have this your 25% of your production goes into reserve, keep that on the planet, or keep that in an area, and then you resupply from that after the combat or after the scenario, and that's how you do it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. This was a step-by-step tutorial. I hope it wasn't too long. I went on a bit. There were a couple of issues, but this was requested by someone, and it really shows kind of the step-by-step process of after you gain naval superiority, how do you take a planet? So I'll see you guys next time. Please like and subscribe. Consider becoming a member to get more content like this. Goodbye.